Hello, Cozy Detectives, and welcome to the Blanket Fort Files. I'm Larissa,
And I'm Joy.
and we're here to report on all things comfy and cozy. How are we doing today, Joy?
I am good. It is sunny out. I
Yay.
have been doing my best to drink water. I'm hoping that soon it will be warm enough that I can go on walks. I also need to embroider a lot for a vintage Joy because I got into a shop.
Oh my gosh, you did! That's so
Yay!
exciting. Tell
So
me more. Tell me more.
I'm very excited about it. It's in like a cute like downtown area, maybe I don't know, 30, 40 minutes from where I live. So
Mhm.
it's not very far, but I'm excited because it's a town that has a gazebo in it.
Cute. Perfect.
I know. And it's funny too because I think a gazebo is just like in every cute little town, but I have had a fall and a winter gazebo sweatshirt for Vintage Joy, the embroidery
Mhm.
business that I have. And it's really fun too because I can finally put it in a shop where people will like be looking for
Yes.
it. So
Yeah. Oh, I
I'm very
love
excited about
that.
it. Hopefully
Well,
in 2-ish weeks, but I need to
ooh,
embroider a lot between now and then.
yeah.
So
Get busy. Well, I'm definitely a fan of your
ah,
work.
yay. That's one of one. Larissa is showing her I cooked my way through Gilmore Girls sweatshirt. I just want to do something to celebrate.
Yeah.
And it's the bread basket that Suki makes. And just some fun little like lavender bits. I took the photo from the website that you posted and like drew it and then embroidered it.
Yeah,
So
I love the details. Like, wow, this looks just like it with a little flower sticking out. My favorite
yes.
flowers, my favorite color. And
Yes.
then I love the back that says I'm doing an encore too, which
Yes.
obviously by the time this episode comes out, I'll be well into, but I just kicked that off last week. So that's been fun so
So
far. Yeah.
exciting. My Instagram's been up and down. So did you post the first thing from it yet or
Yes.
not yet?
Yeah. So that was on my birthday. So I did the Rory cocktail. That was like
Oh, yes.
from her birthday episode, but then I also did the Larissa from my
Cute.
birthday. So it's kind of like
Yay.
a two drinks.
Oh, so fun. I
Yeah.
know mine's been so up and down. Like even today I was trying to post something and it just kept like not working for me, but that's okay. What else has been going on in your week though?
Yeah, it's going. Work has been super busy and hectic, but we're
Mm.
getting through it. Um, but it's been kind of weird weather-wise. We had a really bad rainstorm, possible tornadoes a couple nights ago. Luckily, nothing like came through, but we were under a watch. I always get them mixed up between like tornado watch and tornado warning.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh man.
but ended up being fine. And it got me thinking of some episode ideas for future case files for us. So stay tuned for
Yes.
that.
Yes. I know. I feel like every time I like do something fun now, I'm like, ooh, is that a 2% cozy? Or I'm like, ooh, should that be a case file? I'm most of the way through a book that off of the pod, but I had texted you about this was like a while back because I wasn't sure if it was going to be a 2% cozy or not. I think it's actually like a really kind of cute case file. So we'll see.
Cute. Love
It's
that.
a book about England slash
Our fave.
America. I know,
So
right? So
cute.
that comes up a lot, but it's really cute.
Yeah. Yeah. It'll come up
Oh.
today too.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness, my brain. I'm really excited for our case files this week.
Me too. I love how our brains have already like shifted into like searching for case files for everything, and like we're always texting each other like, "Oh, let's make this a case file." And
Yeah.
I just love that it's
Like,
like consumed us now.
yeah, just some of those like universal things that either we had or did or tried as a kid, or just something that can like, for all of the cozy detectives, can just like bring back those memories or spark. If you haven't seen either, we're talking about two films today. If you have not seen either of these films, highly, highly rated. Even like the more and more research I did on my case file, I was pleasantly surprised that it was as charming as I had hoped it would be.
Yay, love that. I know, and that's kind of what's fun too because I've actually not seen the one that you're talking about today.
Oh,
So,
really?
yes.
I love it.
Yeah, so I love like learning from each other for new cozy and nostalgic things to get into. So
Yes.
very excited
Yes.
to hear
What
about
what Well, the case files themselves are time travel movies, so we each have one that kind of includes that, but it's not sci-fi. Neither of them
Right.
are specifically like sci-fi, futuristic-y, robot-y, nothing like that. So
Yeah.
that's
That's
not fun.
always that's always a discussion I kind of get into with some of my reader friends about like genre, because with books sometimes, and I feel like movies too can kind of fall into this. Sometimes it's really hard to put something into a genre. I mean, that's kind of life. Like some things are really hard to put into a
Yeah.
box. But specifically with science fiction, like what makes it science fiction versus like fantasy versus magical
Mm.
realism versus speculative fiction, like it's just all so interesting. But I love I love kind of thinking about that stuff. But yeah, science fiction. I guess technically these could, in a way, like for mine, Wikipedia lumped it in that, but it doesn't feel like science fictiony to me, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it almost feels like maybe I'm thinking of magical realism incorrectly,
Hmm.
but that's kind of where I would put the
Yeah,
movies.
yeah, that's how I would refer to that as well. For me, how I personally define magical realism is like one thing about the world is different. Like all the other rules in the universe are the same, but like one thing is different. So for both of ours, that's time travel.
Yes.
So any book that I read that has time travel, but everything else is the same, to me, that makes sense for magical realism. Science fiction to me is like there's more things that are different. I actually got into this with
Yeah.
a friend, not got into it, but we were talking like deeply about it. And she was like, to me, science fiction just has to take place in space.
That's kind of what I was thinking, like, when I think science fiction, I think, like, Star Trek, Star Wars.
Right.
I actually don't even know if in my brain I would put Lord of the Rings under that, even though it's, like, its whole other world and scenario and
Yeah,
rules and all of that, but that's so funny. That's kind of where I think of it too, just, like,
that's so
in
funny.
space or out there, or have you read The Hail Mary Project?
No, but I have seen that a lot, like all over Bookstagram, and I know that's like a very like prolific science fiction.
Yeah, that's where like my brain immediately went to that one. Or
Yeah.
recently, my husband and I rewatched I, Robot. So good.
Yeah.
And I would consider that even though it's set in the United States, I would still consider that very sci-fi-y because of just like so many different factors
Yeah.
involved with that. But yes. Oh, I'm so excited. Okay. Should we get
Yeah.
into our case files?
Yes, I'm excited to talk about it. I'm going first this week, and we are diving into About Time, a 2013 romantic comedy slash science fiction slash magical realism, whatever you want to call it. So this movie, like I said, it came out in 2013. I would also kind of refer this to maybe as like a dramedy, kind of the same with Gilmore Girls, where it's not really comedic to me. Like there's funny bits to it, but I guess it is kind of lumped in that rom com category. But it is starring Rachel McAdams and Domhnall Gleeson, and they're the main characters, Mary and Tim, respectively. And it's also starring Bill Nighy, who's like a super well known British actor. Our cozy detectives may know him from Pirates of the Caribbean, where he played Davy Jones. I almost said Daisy Jones. We talked
He
about that
sings and
recently.
dances.
Why not? He probably could. He
He
probably could
probably
be in
could.
that,
He's so
honestly.
good.
And he's also in Love Actually, and he plays
Which
Tim's
I've
dad.
actually never seen that one.
I am not actually a fan. I've seen it like one
Ooh.
time. I know this might be a little controversial. Don't cancel us, please. But um, I didn't think it lived up to the hype that like everyone puts around it. Personally,
I think that's the hard thing is if you go into a movie knowing the hype of everything or like
hmm
having expectations at like an 11 out of 10 and then even if it's good, if it's not as good as your brain thought it would be, it's like, oh no.
right? Yeah, like I
Oh no.
loved because it's very like A list, like star studded,
Mhm.
but I don't know. It just felt like there was too many like plots going on, and some of them felt a little like weird and icky to me. So,
Yeah, I struggle with those movies kind of in general, like with like New Year's Eve and Valentine's Day, because
hmm
that's like another not as largely loved as Love Actually, but as far as I'm aware, but it has all those like mixing plot lines and I just get
Hmm.
lost and I normally
Right.
will like love one of the plot lines, but then I just kind of like let the others do whatever and I'll just like follow this
Yeah.
one like
Yeah.
group and I'm like, okay,
And you never
you're my
get enough
people.
of it.
Yeah. Yeah, honestly.
Well, speaking of star-studded, this movie also has Margot Robbie in it. It's one of her first roles, kind of her bigger roles before she be kind of blew up. So this was right before Wolf of Wall Street. So that was kind of a little fun tidbit. I sometimes when I first like really started rewatching this a lot, I would always like forget she was in that, and I was like, oh yeah, Margot Robbie's in this.
Yeah, I just forgot to. I was like, wait, where is she at? And then I was like, oh yeah, she's so young.
I know, our little Barbie.
I know. She's so cute though. I just love
I
her.
know, me too. She's a really good actress.
Hmm.
And then this movie was directed and written by Richard Curtis. So really quickly, kind of before I dive into like bits of the plot, I was first introduced to this movie by my friend Sarah, which is the same friend that I mentioned with the space and the science fiction.
Oh, nice.
So she loves this movie probably even more than I do, and so we watched it together, and I fell in love with it. And then we actually went on a with our when we were in college together. We went on like a school trip to Paris, and
Ooh.
we took like a day trip out to Versailles. And on the bus, we actually watched this movie. So I always kind of like have that memory of like riding on a bus in Paris watching this movie.
Oh, that's so sweet. Okay, one quick tangent before, because the one opportunity that I've had to go to Paris and potentially go to Versailles was when they had a like strike on vehicle something somethings,
Oh
and
yeah,
so I
they're always
couldn't.
having strikes over there. Yeah.
Yeah. But I didn't even know. I just showed up and bought
Oh
bus
no.
tickets and then walked outside and I was like, where are all the buses?
Oh no. Where are all the buses?
I was like, what am I doing? But
Oh
did
no.
you like Versailles? Like, would you say that's like a must do if you can, if you go to Paris?
Yeah, it's honestly kind of overwhelming. It's gorgeous. We went in January, so like part of it is like the gardens, and so obviously like that wasn't in bloom. So I do, if I go back, want to go back sometime in like the springtime
Oh,
just to
pretty.
see all of the gardens like in bloom and stuff. But yeah, I really recommend it. If you're, especially if you're into like Marie Antoinette and all of that, like I think it's really cool to see some of that history.
Oh, that's so fun. It gives me like Pemberley. My brain's trying to remember that. It's
Oh,
giving
mm-hmm.
Pemberley vibes in my brain, but like I'm pretty sure it's like 2 to 3 times as big. Like it's
Yeah,
a whole
definitely.
thing. Oh, okay. Sorry about that
Yeah,
tangent. I
no,
just had to know.
you're good. I We can talk about Paris, we can talk about London all day.
Ugh,
It's fine
love
by
it.
me. So kind of getting into the premise, and again, no spoilers, but Tim finds out on his 21st birthday that his the men in his family can travel through time. So that's kind of the whole premise, is that he can time travel, aka our theme for this episode. So Tim, when we meet him, he lives in Cornwall with his parents, his uncle, and his sister Kit Kat. But shortly after, moves to London to become a lawyer. And he meets Mary, Rachel McAdams' character, at a restaurant. And hopefully I say this right. Speaking of France, it is a French name, Dans le Noir, and it is a real life restaurant actually in London. It is on my London bucket list if we go back.
Ooh, mine now
Definitely,
too.
yeah, I definitely want to go there. But essentially, the wait staff that works there is blind. And so, to kind of give you that experience, the restaurant is pitch black dark, like you cannot see anything. And so, you kind of have that, I guess, immersive experience. They say, like, if you can't use one of your senses, the other ones kind of become heightened. So, I would imagine if you can't see, like, your taste is probably increased a little bit, if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
and the actual restaurant is that as well. It's not just meant for the movie for that? Like the actual restaurant is also pitch black?
Yes. So in real life, it's hosted or it's staffed by actual blind waiters as well. You eat in
Oh.
the dark for that same experience.
Wow, that is so cool. I didn't know that. I
Yeah.
would have totally guessed they had just made that for the movie.
Right. And so I. I knew at one point that it was a real place, but I kind of forgot. And this is one of my comfort plane movies. Like I watch it a lot of the time, it's available on a plane. And so when we were coming back from that London trip last year, I watched it and was like,
Oh.
we missed an opportunity. Oh
Oh no, nothing is worse than that when you're like, "Oh, I just found this
no.
out."
Yeah.
Like, "Oh
So
man, just
yeah,
missed it."
definitely have to go back. But anyway, so that's how he meets Mary. So they haven't seen each other yet. They're just talking to each other because they're sat next to each other. And the sparks start to fly in the dark. Kind of when I was typing my notes out for this, I was like, this feels very much like Love is Blind, the TV.
That's true. They fell in love before they
Yeah.
even saw each other.
Yeah. So, I think about time probably invented Love is Blind.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm in it.
um, so then they leave the restaurant and they get to see each other for the first time. And love is not just blind anymore. Like they're attracted to each other.
Yeah. Which is
Um,
funny because if I'm remembering correctly, it's him and his buddy that go, and the
mhm.
buddy is like so quirky and like
Yeah.
so weird.
Yeah. Cause she's
So
also
funny.
with a friend.
Mm.
So they're like, do the friends get together? They're a little like unsure because they don't have the same kind of chemistry that Tim and Mary do. But yeah, the movie essentially follows their relationship over the course of several years, obviously, with him being a time traveler. So that obviously plays a big part to it. There's some twists and turns, but I don't want to spoil anything. Um, but kind of why I really love this movie, and I'll get into like the coziness of it later on, but it feels or it is a little bit more unconventional than other rom-coms. Like I said earlier, I would classify it more as like a dramedy, but it feels just a little bit more authentic, I guess, than a lot of the like tropey rom-coms that are pretty popular, which don't get me wrong, I love a lot of those, but this just feels a little bit more, I guess, authentic. And there's a big emphasis on family relationships and finding happiness in like the little everyday moments. And that's actually something I've been trying to do a lot more lately this year is write down little things that bring me joy, even if they're like smaller moments.
Yeah, I love that.
And I guess that's kind of something we do with 2% too, in a way.
Yeah, I've been I have it next to me here. This is not my 2%, but you just reminded me. It's gonna look really sad if you're watching this because there's only like 3 or 4 in here. My plan for this
Oh,
year was every Friday to write down and put in this jar something that I was grateful for that happened that week so that at the end of the year, specifically for like a vintage joy, the embroidery business, because I could look
yeah.
back on it and just see all the things that like were wonderful throughout the year. So one, that's a good reminder for me. Two, it's another idea for our cozy detectives.
I really love that. That's such a really good idea. I think I might copy it myself.
Yeah, do it. As long as I remember it, I feel like it's a good idea.
Yeah, that's always the hard part. Sometimes because I try to do mine like like in my notes app, like an everyday, like not every day, but like every month as like a month recap. But then sometimes I'm at the end of the month and I'm like, what happened this month?
Yeah. That's the
So
trickiest bit is like if you wait too long, you forget what you are grateful for. So it's like if you can do it like daily or
right.
weekly, I feel like that's better. But even then, I mean, I just feel like the human brain just forgets stuff because I'm like, there's only
Yeah,
like
that's
3 or 4
normal.
different pieces of paper, and we're definitely not in January. So
Yeah. Well, hopefully you added
yes.
starting a podcast on there.
Oh, I'm not gonna lie, I stopped it in January, so I will get back to it.
Perfect. This will be your first entry.
Yes.
So back to About Time. It's kind of, a lot of people probably are thinking this when brought this up, but Rachel McAdams was actually in a very similar movie about being in a relationship with a time traveler. It's, I think, probably a little bit more well known than About Time, but maybe not to our cozy detectives. And that is called The Time Traveler's Wife. And that movie came out in 2009. So that one was technically first. Have you
Hmm.
seen that one?
No, I actually haven't seen that one at all. Rachel McAdams has been very specific movies for me to love her, and this is like the top loved of mine of hers
Yeah, me
is
too.
About Time. So I actually have not seen that. Have you seen that one?
I have. I don't like that one as much as About Time. I I don't dislike it, but I think like the chemistry between the two main characters. So Rachel and Domhnall in this one. I don't know the actor's name for the time traveler's wife. I just feel like her chemistry with him is so much better in this movie, and obviously the scenery. We'll talk about that when I talk about the
Love.
coziness. But it's just it's so good in this movie, and I think about time like going back to that same message about finding happiness in those little moments, I think comes across a lot more in this movie than in
Yeah.
Time Traveler's Wife, which that one actually was based off of a book, but this one was like an original screenplay, which is interesting.
Oh, interesting. Okay, okay.
Yeah,
I'm already seeing a few crossovers between our case files.
I love it, love it. But the I didn't write this down, but I did remember seeing this. Um, the screenwriter director Richard Curtis, when he was trying to come up with the screenplay, he really did want to make, at the core, it was just going to be a movie about finding happiness in the everyday. So that I think translates really well. Like I've talked about that multiple
Yeah.
times now. And then it kind of evolved into time travel. So it wasn't like originally the like premise or like the main core of the movie.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of more of a vehicle for the message of enjoying the little things versus
Yes.
like potentially in my brain since it's called like the time traveler's wife gives me vibes of like the main core of it is that the
The
husband's time
time
traveling.
travel. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, that was, I like the word, the vehicle. That was such a good way of describing this.
I'm trying to
I
get
love
into it,
it.
getting in the zone.
Yes, yes. So one thing I will say, just as a side, not necessarily a warning, but for some people who may not like this movie as much if they haven't seen it before, I will kind of warn you going into it. There are quite a few plot holes. If you do kind of like really pay attention to it, like if you're just there chilling for the vibes, it's great. But if you're like super into it, there's actually quite a few because their rules of time travel do kind of seem to change throughout the movie.
Yep.
So if that's something that's going to bother you, like just maybe knowing that going into it might help you out. Um, but before I wrap it up, I will share why I personally find this really cozy. Again, the scenery, the like seaside. So I don't think I mentioned this, but their house in Cornwall is right by the sea. So you get all those like beautiful shots, the water
Mhm.
and everything. Ugh, love.
For the bingo card,
Um,
it's very Emily, A Year in the Life at the end. It's
yes,
very similar, like, not filmed
you're
in the same
right.
spot, but it could be, you know?
Yeah,
Very.
definitely. Very like coastal grandmother, which I just love.
Yes. Yes, love. Oh, love.
um, and then again, the chemistry between Tim and Mary, I love their relationship and how they just kind of like flirt with each other, but it's not ever like, oh, ooey gooey. Um, I don't know if this would spoil it. So if it does, we can cut this out. But when they get married, I just love how it's very like non-traditional. Like she wears a red wedding dress, which is on the cover of the movie, and she walks down to like this like Italian opera song.
Love.
So I just love how like kind of like quirky and unique that they are.
Mhm.
And obviously like the lessons of everyday happiness, and this soundtrack is one of my favorite movie soundtracks. It's so good.
If you
I
I was
was
like, "If she doesn't say this, I must say this," because it's one of my favorite ever, like,
Yeah, it's
movie
so good.
rom-com, very unique soundtracks, but oh my gosh, it's
Yeah,
so good.
I love it. I texted you this, but I was listening to it while I was getting ready before we hopped on.
Oh, so
And
good.
literally, and I watch this movie all the time. It's definitely one of my go to comfort rewatches. But if I hear any song from this soundtrack, I'm immediately like, I have to watch it About Time, like right now.
I think I love all of that. The thing that I will say about the movie for me is that I was like, I don't know, maybe it just came at a very special time in my life of like
Mhm.
watching it for the first time, of like being engaged and like just thinking about the future type things like
Yeah.
that. But ooh, you girl, I cry at the end every single time. And
Oh,
so like I love it, but it's not as much of a rewatch for me as it seems to be for you because I'm just like, I'm not in the mood to cry. Even though like I know it's so good. It's so
yeah.
good. But I
That
just
yeah. Well, I guess I should put some triggers for people if they haven't seen it, because there is obviously like sadness in it. There's a pretty sad plot line. I'm not going to spoil that, but for me, I don't know. I think because it does end happy.
very hopeful. It's more so
Yeah.
like the thought of like that heart and core of the movie, like you were talking about, that's the
Yeah.
thing that will make me cry, not any of the
Yeah.
like particularly sad
Actual like
moments.
sad parts.
Yeah, yeah.
No,
Which I
that
think is
totally
also
makes
just
sense.
it's so well written too. Like,
Yeah.
oh, so good.
Yeah.
Minus
And
the
I
plot
think,
holes, because you're very right about that.
yeah, sometimes I'll watch it and I'm like, wait, but you said how
Yeah.
does okay. But yeah, I think for me and why I can just like rewatch it is that like hopefulness at the end and just that like reminder to enjoy every little moment. Um, but I will say, and this is going to be different because obviously I can watch it all the time and not cry, but I hardly cry in movies, so that's normal for me because I have one friend who hasn't seen it. I've been trying to get her to watch it for so long,
Do
but
it.
she's like heard that it's sad, so she's scared that she's gonna really sob. So
Oh, but it's worth it. It's the good
yeah,
cry.
yeah,
It's just my brain can't allow me to do that at all times. But it's so good.
that's
If
so
you're
fair.
listening, you must watch this.
Yes,
Whether you are a cozy detective, new or old, it is so good.
it is. All right, well, and that is about time, and I'm very excited to hear about your case file.
Yes, my case file is on the movie Age of Adaline. Age of Adaline is released in 2015 and follows the story of Adeline Bowman, played by Blake Lively. This, I would say, is like a magical realism as well, in that she is born in the early like 1910 era,
Mhm.
and this is in the very beginning of the movie, so and in the preview, so I'm not spoiling anything here. But she gets in a car accident, and the coldness of the water and a lightning strike stop her from aging. So
Mm.
it's following her life throughout and what that means, because she is, I believe, 29 at the time of
Okay.
stopping aging. She again, this is in the beginning of the movie, so we're 2 minutes in here. But she is married and she has a daughter, and at the time she doesn't know that she's stopped aging, but obviously she starts to realize when she gets like pulled over by a cop just for like a routine something something. He's like, "You're 45." And Blake Lively at the time was like about the age of Adaline. So it's like,
Hmm.
you look a good 15, 20 years too young to be
Right.
45. And so it follows her story from the 1910s all the way up to 2015 when the movie came out. And so it's just
Oh.
very interesting to see how, I would say, in a similar way to About Time, it's a lot of people hope and wish to kind of have like everlasting life, and like what would that really
Mhm.
look like would you
Yeah.
enjoy that, or would that end up being something that's more potentially of a burden than a blessing? And
Right.
so it's very sweet because Adeline does have a daughter, but eventually, again, early in the movie, her daughter is older than her, so they think
Yeah.
it's her mom, and it's just
Oh
it's a
wow. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, they meet for like after New Year's Eve, and just because Adeline is born in the like 1910 era, the costuming
Oh
is
wow.
amazing. It is
Yeah.
so good. It's the same costume designer that did Moulin Rouge, if you've
Oh,
seen that
one
movie.
of my favorites.
So good.
Yeah.
And then just the way that the costume designer, the hair and makeup, Blake Lively herself, who kind of also looks like she could fit into a lot of different eras, they walk her through the 1910s, 20s, 30s, 40s, maybe the 50s. We do jump a bit throughout time. The eras that we don't really see in it is like the 80s, 90s, early 2010s. We kind of
Yeah.
just jump to the 2015 era. It's really about Adeline and her story of what does it look like to love, and like, do you love, and like, do you self-protect? And at the beginning of the movie, she's moving around a lot every few years. If it starts to get a little bit like, wait a second, you're not aging, she'll just move locations
Oh,
and change her name and get a new everything. So it's
yeah.
very interesting to see her through that process. We also meet Elias Jones, who is played by Michel Usman. Probably not correct. He's in Game of Thrones, but I've never seen that.
Oh,
So I have no idea.
do you know who he played? I did watch Game of Thrones. Definitely not Cozy.
He, yeah, that's very not cozy. That's probably why I was like, you know what?
Yeah.
The dragons seem kind of fun, but besides that, that's all
They
I
were
know.
fun until the very end. I'm
Oh
pretty sure the
no.
last season just
Oof.
was not it.
Oof. But he is like an old soul. So he meets her in 2015 and looks about the same age as her. So obviously just presumes she's not immortal, that she is his age.
Yeah.
And it's a very interesting relationship and dynamic. And we see them walk through that. And what does that look like? There's also Harrison Ford in this movie.
Oh,
So
nice.
good. I'm trying not to do a lot of spoilers because if you haven't seen it, it is a wonderful movie. It feels very old Hollywood in the best way of saying that. In
Yeah.
a few of the behind the scenes aspects of things that I was looking into, one, it's a very sweet movie. Now knowing this, I did not know this at the time of watching it, but Blake Lively, like off screen, obviously, but like she didn't start the movie pregnant. She was pregnant halfway through, and then by the time the press junket happened, she had her first
Oh,
daughter.
wow.
So it's really sweet. She was talking about the costuming in an interview and talked about how like it's just like a nice memory to think back on this movie because she became a mother throughout it as well,
Oh,
which is
yeah.
a really cool connection to the movie itself.
Yeah.
And then also it is based also on a screenplay, so that's fun, but it's not based upon a book. So that's interesting because normally
Yeah.
a lot of movies nowadays are based upon books. So I
Right.
appreciated that these were both like new beginnings to things.
Yeah. I love that. I know I told you this story when we were like planning out our case files and our themes, but I was going to share my little embarrassing story about Age of Adaline and slash books.
Oh, do it.
so So, a couple of years ago, I started reading a book called The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. And I knew of this movie. Like I said, I've never seen the movie. I've seen maybe the trailer a couple times. And you're right, the costuming is so gorgeous. Um, so I remembered Blake Lively was in it and that the general premise was that she like doesn't age and she moves throughout the time periods. So I was reading Addie LaRue. So Addie LaRue, Adaline, like there's some
Close.
similarities there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so Addie LaRue also is a book about a woman who doesn't age and moves through time. However, it only goes back and forth between like two time periods, like the 1700s, and then I think it was like 2015 or also kind of like around that same time, but it only went back and forth between those two. And like halfway through, I was like, when are we getting to the other time period?
Oh no.
Because I was thinking this was the book that Age of Adaline was based off of.
Oh, that sounds like it would be. You're like, excuse me.
Yeah, they're very similar. So, yeah.
Oh, oh, I get that. My
So,
experience with that was Mamma Mia. I had the first time I
oh,
saw Mamma Mia, the first movie, I
mhm.
thought both movies jumped back and forth between
Oh
like
no.
younger and like the older versions
Yeah.
of themselves. And the whole time I was like, where the heck is it Lily? Is that what her name is? I was like, where's
Yeah.
she at? I'm waiting for young Donna and just oh my goodness. They
Yeah,
get
that's
you.
so
They get
funny.
you.
Yeah, but
Aw.
I will say though, back to like the Blake Lively of it all, I when you mentioned old Hollywood, like I think you're right. She is one of those actresses who just kind of embodies that like classic Hollywood look. Like, have you heard of the term now that they're calling like iPhone face?
Ooh, no.
Yeah, so they're using that to describe some like current celebrities and how some people, and it's all very subjective in my opinion, but like they think certain actresses and actors now have this look about them that's seen in iPhone basically. Like they either have filler, veneers, but they look
Oh.
very much like set in current times. So when they do period pieces, it's hard to
Mm.
picture them in that time period because they just look too modern now. So when they show when anyway, so when they talk about period pieces, they're like, oh well, that person has an iPhone face. So
Oh, that's so interesting. I've never heard of that. Yeah,
yeah.
like there's some actors where I feel like they could just hop into any period. Like the actor, his name I just lost, but the main actor in this,
Hmm.
Mihel. I was like, I
Hmm.
looked so hard to be able to say his name right. I had to wait
Yeah.
for like Blake to say in an interview, but Mihel feels like he could be in anything. Like the Cozy Detectives might know him from the Potato Peel Society. He's the
Hmm.
main actor in that as well, and he's actually from the Netherlands, so he's been a lot in a lot of like main movies there as like the main character. But I don't know Dutch, so
Yeah.
I've never seen that. But yes, I
Yeah.
feel like he is really good at hopping back and forth too, like in different eras and time periods. Yeah. Oh, that's so interesting. I would have never thought that.
Yeah.
A few more fun facts about Age of Adeline is that the way that it looks old Hollywood as well, especially when we're in the older time periods. And that is because a few of the scenes they actually did use like the hand cranked camera, like
Oh
and sent off the
wow.
film. So they
Wow.
filmed in they called it was in Vancouver, but the movie itself is set in San Francisco, so they called it like San Francouver or something like that. Yes. So many other things are filmed there, such as Psych and like, funny old TV. But
Love that.
so it was filmed on certain parts were filmed on hand crank, and then the other parts that were shot digitally, they tried to shoot with lenses that were appropriate to the period so that some of the charm of like the lens flares or like the corners vignetting and things like
Hmm.
that, that really was in camera and it wasn't like added extras. Not that it can't be done with that, but just like the true look that you would get from like an old cinemascope type movie really was the same. And you can see that so clearly. It's so pretty.
Yeah, that I think there's something about creating art from a past time period, but using like the methodology from that
Yes.
time period.
Yes. And I think I might have said Elias. His name is Ellis, but that's okay. But it is also very, very sweet because the year I believe after they finished filming, I just thought this was so lovely that Blake had her quote unquote daughter over for
Hmm.
Easter that year,
Oh,
which is just so cute. I just
yeah,
love that.
that's sweet. I
Yes.
love that.
And
That's really cute.
right. I've said a few things about why I feel like it's cozy, but obviously like the costuming, the plot itself I really love because you do get the feel of each of those periods as we kind of walk through them with Adaline. And then also the timelessness of it, I feel like is really good. There was an interview with Harrison Ford where he phrased it like this. He said, I think an audience will enjoy being transported into a world that excites your imagination and opens your heart.
Oh,
I was like, Harrison, good job. Good job, Harrison Ford. Because that is really how it feels because it is very like imaginative and like what I feel like a lot of times when I personally watch movies, I'm like, what would I do if I was the main character or what would this be like or things like
hmm,
that. And it really makes you think about the movie itself and the plot of it makes you think about like what would I do if like I couldn't age? Like is that something I would
right.
enjoy? Is that something I wouldn't like? Like how does that work into like relationships, like love and friendships, and like she has a pet in it. How does that work? And
Yeah. Oh, that's one thing
oh,
I've heard about it. Oh, I can't.
oh, it's really really sweet though.
Yeah.
I love the ending. So I feel like it ends in a way that does honor the audience, and I think that's something with both of our case files is it really honors your time. I guess is the way to say that.
Time.
I know. Look at
Perfect.
me go. I didn't even mean to do that. Um, but it really just is very smart, and I'm sure that there's plot holes in this as well, but just watching it as like a casual viewer, the like coziness and warmth, and because she was born in like the 1910s and we do see her throughout time, but she really carries a lot of that aspects with her in like her clothing. Some of them are like in the 2015s would be considered like vintage from like the previous decades, and her like the outfits, the hair, the even kind of she kind of almost has like an accent to a certain extent. There is a very famous like New Year's Eve dress in this movie, and
Hmm.
it is so wonderful. I love it so much. I just love the 1940s, like in the I guess in the like romanticized version of it, obviously there was like a lot of hard things going on. And I think that
Yeah.
also is an Adeline's character as well, of like what she went through it in those time periods you see as well later on. And I just think they really honor all of the time periods very well in that.
Yeah. I love that.
So that is Age of Adeline. And I think if you haven't watched it, that you should. And then let us know. Come back to this episode and comment. And if you have seen both, it will not hurt our feelings because we love both of them. But let us know which movie that is like your favorite out of these two. I would
Yeah.
love to see.
I know. I think we should do that for all of them. I think you might have convinced me to watch it now too.
Yes, you should. And then let me know. I want to know next podcast
Oh,
episode.
I don't know if
Maybe
I'll
that's
get
too
it
much of a
by
timeline.
then, but
At some
but
point. At some point, it should be
yes,
your 2% cozy. How about that?
yes. Oh, I love that for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Oh well,
Speaking of
speaking.
two,
Oh,
yeah, I was
yeah.
just gonna say that.
We are in sync
We're
now.
right there. Oh my gosh. Okay. Okay, you just said I just got really loud and very excited. Can I
No,
do my
you're
2%
good.
cozy first now that you just said
Yes,
that?
I think you're first supposed to be first anyway, so I'm very excited to
Oh,
hear
okay.
this.
Okay, you said it now that we're in sync and
Did you? Oh
I
my gosh!
did. I
Yay!
bought like a vintage in
Oh,
sync shirt.
yay! I know that was your goal. Was that like the first
Yeah.
I think it was the first episode where you mentioned that was like on your like bucket list for
Yes, it
thrifting.
was. I
Oh,
did not thrift it at a thrift store. I found it online, but it is from the 1999 World Tour.
oh wow,
I
cute.
love it. I'm obsessed.
That's
I might wear
perfect.
it next episode. I just oh, and on the back. So on the front, it has the large in sync across the top. It's got all of our favorite five.
Yeah,
The first Fab Five. Actually, I don't think they were. I think the actual Fab Five were first, which also is fantastic. They were so good.
love it.
And then it's got the world tour at the bottom. And then if you flip it over, it has where they
Oh
went.
wow.
So it's, oh, I love
Do
it.
they
I'm
come
very
through Dallas? I need to know.
Let's see.
That's like my closest city for concerts.
They went to I see Salt Lake City. Oh, it's interesting. It seems to be. See, you'd think one side would say the state and the other would say
Oh
the.
yeah, they're
It
like
doesn't.
I see that now.
They're just messing with it. They went to Houston, Dallas, San Antonio, Phoenix.
Wow, you're all over Texas.
I know. They went everywhere. They went to Denver.
Love
Jealous.
it.
Jealous of 1999. I never got to go to one of their concerts, so it's really funny. I mean, obviously jokingly, but I texted my mom and I was like, "Would you like to right a wrong of the past?" And she was like, "What?" And I was like, "If you haven't like gotten me a present yet, I want this." As a full-grown adult, I want this concert shirt that I never got.
Perfect.
Oh, that was so good that when you were like, "We're just in sync," and I was like, "Oh, you
Wow,
know."
what a transition. We really are
I
then. That
I
same phrase.
know. That's still my favorite
It was
transition.
perfect.
What's
It
your
really
2%
was.
cozy?
So mine, it may not sound super cozy if you're not into this, but I had a tinned fish night this past weekend. I don't know if you've heard of that.
I don't know what that is.
So
What is
I ended up on like tinned fish TikTok a while back. Was always kind of scared to try it because like it's literally just like eating like sardines and stuff out of like a tin, which sounds
Oh.
revolting. Like I get how it sounds. I am aware. But watching a lot of people on TikTok and it was like really trendy, I want to say like last summer. Um, but it's kind of like you remember like I mean I still do make these, but like those charcuterie boards with like the
Oh,
meats and
yeah.
pieces and that. So people are kind of doing that, but more around the different tinned fishes. And they have some like pretty not it's not just like a can't think of like anchovies in like a tin or like the tinned like canned tuna that we have here. It's like imported like from Spain or from Portugal where it's like a really big part of their culture.
Ooh.
And they have like really good spices and oils and sauces infused into the tin, so they're actually like really delicious.
Oh,
So
I've
just
never
kind of
even
like
heard of this.
yeah, and like pairing it with like different cheeses and breads and crackers and like jams, jellies, nuts, like the whole shebang. So I had one. It's probably my best one I put together. We'll throw up some like photos and
Yes.
videos from it because I did take
Yes,
those.
please.
But
I just went on Pinterest
yeah.
and looked up tinned fish night. I was like, what is this? Oh,
Yeah.
that's really cool. Yeah, it's like basically like a charcuterie board, but with like a bunch of different aspects.
Fish.
So is it meant to be
Yeah.
kind of like very charcuterie when like you're putting either the fish
Putting
or
it
I see
together.
eggs,
Yeah.
so you just put it all on like a cracker?
Yeah. So just trying out different combinations is really fun with like a whole grain
Mm.
mustard or a jam, which
Ooh.
this episode will come out after I share this on my Instagram feed. It's like lining up, but one of my encore dishes that I made is the jam from season 4. When remember they forget to bring Luke a present and they
Oh,
get
I
the like
love
fake jam.
that. Oh,
Yeah.
cute. Oh my goodness, I love that.
So I had a jam. It's like I did a raspberry, mango, and nectarine jam. It was really
Ooh.
good, and so
Mm.
that was part of the like, tin fish night.
Ooh, okay, maybe this is cheating, but I was gonna ask you what was your favorite combo? Was it one of your jams with the fish or was it something else?
Yeah, I mean, we it was layered. So there was like,
Cool.
we had some like sourdough bread that we pan seared, and then creme fraiche, and then the jam, and then we had, I think, I'll have to look at the picture, but I'm pretty sure it was the sardines in like a lemon olive oil in the tin. So you put a little bit of that
Whoa.
on. And then like a little pickle, a little squirt of fresh lemon juice, and then a little, I told you it's
Whoa, yes,
complex.
very layered. I love it though.
And then like a little dollop of balsamic glaze on top. So good.
Ooh, ooh.
Oh, and then the cheese, of course. Can't forget the
Mm.
cheese.
Oh my goodness. See, that's so funny. So, like a funny, random, quirky thing about me,
Mm-hmm.
or not either, but for you on our cozy detectives, is like one of the things is I don't love fish, but I like sushi.
Mm-hmm.
So explain to me that
Oh,
that makes no sense.
yeah.
But maybe it's like the combo of flavors, like you were saying about how it's like layered and how it's
Layered.
not just
Yeah.
like I couldn't do just the is it sashimi or whatever it is of like just the raw.
Just
I could not do that.
yeah.
I need like a
Yeah.
roll. It can be like
Yeah.
different kinds of rolls. Like I don't need just a California roll, but also California rolls are good. But
Yeah.
yes, so I feel like I would try it if you cooked it because I trust you. But
Yeah. And I think there's different kinds, and that's kind of been the fun of like going to Central Market and like trying the different kinds. I haven't been brave enough to do like octopus or squid yet.
have you
I've
done
kind of
like
just
the fried before,
oh yeah, I've had like fried like
like
calamari and
calamari?
stuff like that. Yeah. But like in terms of like the tin, because like one rule that we have is you don't look at it too closely because it doesn't look appealing.
That's so funny, yeah. You should
Yeah.
have it you should, cook that or order that in that restaurant from About Time, then you would never know.
Oh, so smart. And it
How
all
they gonna
comes
know?
back.
Yeah, it all comes
Perfect.
back.
Love
Oh,
that.
I love that. I love
Yeah.
that. Well, you can find us on Instagram at Blanket Fort Files and be sure to follow us wherever you listen to your podcasts. We'd appreciate your feedback, so leave us a review and then join us next week in the Blanket Fort where we'll each share about one of our favorite cozy games.
Yay.
I'm excited. I'm going to play it a few more times for sure before,
Oh, that's smart.
right? I need to get
Get
like
in the
at least
vibe.
2+ years in, I feel like. So
Yeah.